Hi, everyone. Can we have some fun? So I have this philosophy. I don't like to just talk at people. I can learn just as much from you during these types of things. So yeah, there's Q&A at the end, but if you have something to say in the middle of this presentation, please say it, because I'm going to ask you some questions along the way anyways. Right on. Good, right? Good. Yes. So I was a little worried about the time spot. I was like, is there anything worse than being the noon time spot when everyone really wants to go eat lunch? And my sales enablement manager is back there, Keely, and whenever she gets a little stressed out, I always look at her, I'm like, Keely, I'm your boss. And your boss can make, if you give me lemons, I can make the best vodka lemonade ever. So I'm very optimistic, and I figured there is a worse situation than delivering a presentation right now. It's delivering that presentation at 4 o'clock before the cocktail hour. So I'm one up on that. So it's funny, let me just see if I can get this moving here. Green button, right? Gotcha. We're waiting for my presentation. Well, let's just keep talking then. So I have this, I don't need the slide. I have this 84-year-old uncle. I'm from Boston. He's 84 years old. He's a former Boston Fire Department captain. He's completely enamored rather. See, I think the jet lag's getting to me. He's enamored by the fact that he has a niece that's in this corporate field, right? And he's always asking me questions about it. And I just recently made a transition from Brain Shark, actually, to the Monotype team. And we're at my daughter's 6th birthday party, and he's like, so what the hell are you doing now? What's this sales enablement stuff all about? And I start giving him the textbook definition, and he's just looking at me, has no idea what I'm talking about. And finally I go, listen, I'm like a teacher for sales reps. I teach them how to be successful. And then I joked and I said, and I'm also part psychologist. And so at the time I was joking about that, but as I made the transition at Brain Shark, from Brain Shark into Monotype, I realized there was a lot of truth to that statement. So I know when we come to these events, we hear a lot of great presentations about sales coaching, scaling programs, strategy for sales enablement, and I actually intentionally wanted to take a very different point of view, and I figured you'd either love it or you'd hate it or you'd completely relate to it. So I wanted to talk about the fact that, you know what, sales enablement, we are a little bit of a sales psychologist. You see me walk around my office and this is what everyone calls me. So feel free to call me Jen, call me Haskell, call me Red, or call me Jenny from the block, because that's what my sales reps call me. I'm only going to focus on the past 3 roles. I'm actually coming up on my 20th year of having a career. I worked at a company called Jabra, which is a headsets company. Thank you. It's a great product. Highly recommend it. They had no training program at all. And this is like circa 2011. This is before sales enablement was the thing, right? And by the time I left 5 years later, my role had evolved into sales enablement. So it was all about making this program, certification, quantifiable metrics. So I used this software in order to do this, and that software was Brain Shark. I needed something, because I was one-person show, I needed to be able to create content, I needed to host that content, I needed to have video-based coaching, and Brain Shark allowed me to do that. And when it was time to make a move, it made sense to go to that company. And how cool is it to say, I'm in sales enablement, and I get to work for a sales enablement company? So I had a rep at Brain Shark come to me about 2017, and he said, listen, I have a really difficult sales enablement manager that I'm trying to sell into. She's a champion, but I don't think she's a champion. I can't get in her head. Please help me get in her head. So I did. I helped him get in her head. And even I was like, whew, that's a completely different sales enabler than me, but we're going to get this deal closed, and we did. Well, fast forward to this past March, that individual left the company. I was like, what the heck? I'm going to join Monotype. And that's how I ended up at Monotype. That was the company that we sold into. And I liked going to Monotype. Let me tell you a little bit about it because it definitely ties into why I'm so passionate about sales psychology right now. Monotype is a brand company. Has anyone heard of Monotype before? Okay, one person. Thank you. Two, yes. Keely, you work there. Raise your hand. Chances are you've already interacted with our IP today and you didn't even know it. Monotype is really known for two things. One side of the company is this business called Olapic. It's like this concept of user-generated content. I wear my Swarovski necklace that my husband got me for Christmas. I take a selfie, I post it. Monotype's technology pulls that, gives it to Swarovski, now it's part of their campaign. That's about as dumbed down as I can give you. And then the other one is fonts. Who knew that fonts were a business? Selling fonts, fonts is an IP. It's literally a $60 million a quarter business, and I had no idea. So I thought I knew about this company, and then I joined the company, and I was like, wow, blown away. So you're gonna see us, if you're working out, you're wearing Nike, guess what? Guess where that font came from, right? You're washing your hair in the shower after you worked out, you're using your credit card to get your Starbucks in the morning. Did you just hear my mass accent right there? Whew, sometimes I keep it in check, sometimes I don't. You get in your car, you see, I used it there, I used the R. You get in your car, you see the GPS, that's all Monotype. My scarf has a mind of its own right now because of the mic. So I was joining this company that has this really rich history. Also a company that is global. We have offices in Germany, the UK, APAC, Argentina, throughout the United States. Over 100 years of history and a lot of acquisitions, a lot of mergers, and in recent years, a lot of change. Change is easy, right? Yeah, no. So here I am, joining this sales enablement team that no longer exists. The foundation is there, but I have no idea the logic that was used to create it because it's not my logic and there was no one there to transfer that logic to me. Plus, I'm trying to learn this really unique business where they've had mergers and acquisitions and a lot of change very quickly. I think you guys have seen this slide quite a bit in the past couple of days, right? The different things that us sales enablement people do in order to just basically achieve what we're looking to achieve with our organizations. Creating stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? Maybe the executive team, the senior leaders, the sales managers. Any of you look at your stakeholders as your actual sales reps? Show of hands, yes or no? Good, you should. They are your stakeholders. So I knew that to build credibility, I needed to create these stakeholders. And I kid you not, for the first month of my career at Monotype, I was on a call 1 hour, back to back, 9 hours a day for 1 month straight. And after each call, I said to them, please forgive me in advance. I'm gonna have the same conversation with you 3 months from now so I can look at it from a different point of view once I understand the business better. The most important piece of creating those stakeholders for me was taking everything that I knew about sales enablement, putting it on the back burner, and pretending I didn't know anything. That is how you're successful as a sales enabler. When you're able to say, just because I did something somewhere else and it was successful, doesn't mean I can come right in and do it here and expect the same results. The other thing was communicating. I'm not going to beat a dead horse here. We also do a newsletter. If you're not doing a newsletter, connect with me on LinkedIn. I can give you some templates and some ideas. It's awesome. It's a great way to help your sales team and to communicate with them on a regular basis. Presenting a strategy, a lot of people have talked about that. I just needed to make sure that not only did I present that strategy to my senior leadership team, but I actually shared it with my sales team as well. I wanted them to know that everything we were doing was to help them so that as a company we could achieve the things we needed to achieve. And I needed to create this sales enablement movement because I got this vibe right away that sales enablement didn't understand them. The funny thing is, going back to Trent's presentation, if anyone was in here, sales reps don't give a shit. No, they do. They do give a shit about being successful, right? What they don't give a shit about is when you give them stuff that's not going to help them be successful. So do yourself a favor, make them your stakeholders, and create this sales enablement movement around them helping you help them achieve what they want to achieve. Quick hits. Let me tell you a story. So the type business is really interesting. I walked on the sales floor the first week, and finally I took a manager in the room and I said, what the hell's going on here? I don't hear anyone speaking. I hear no phone calls. What's happening? Oh, well, you can't sell fonts over the phone. It's all done through email. Nobody will take calls. And I also learned that the company had just gone to this open office environment. So now they felt like they were on blast, being judged by their sales reps. So the first thing I did was I was like, and I'm going to tie this in, how do I earn some trust? How do I get some quick hits? I'm going to use a pilot group. So I looked at that BDR inside sales team and I said, if I can throw some quick hits in with this team, then I can share their success and their results with the rest of the organization. It's going to create this buzz. So here's what we did. I said, I don't ever want to hear again that you can't call a customer. I don't care what business you're in, you can call a customer. And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, I'm going to give you exactly what you need to do that. So it started with a lunch and learn, a power hour session. How do you research and prospect, right? Started with another one. How do you do business communication? These are junior level sales reps. Some of them are right out of college. So they really needed a little extra hand-holding when it came to how you communicate with customers. Then it started with Thursdays. Thursdays, they did a call block from 4 to 5, and usually they weren't making calls, but I sat there. I would literally sit on a file cabinet, and they'd look at me, and they're like, so you gonna give me feedback? And I'd look at them and I'd say, no. Do you want feedback? I'm listening. I'm trying to learn the business. I'm onboarding here. You're helping me. If you want feedback, I'll give you feedback, but I'm not just gonna force my feedback on you. And it was amazing, the reverse psychology of that. They wanted the feedback. We brought in John Barrows. I figured, I don't want to just dictate to them. Let me bring in someone in the business that's known for doing this. Let's bring them in so they have a different point of view. Let's see what they get out of that. And sure enough, here we are today. They didn't realize it, but at the time, I was building a program for them. We started to implement role plays, virtual role plays. We started to do video-based coaching assessments through the BrainShark platform. So after about 3 months, their LinkedIn connections increased to like over 400%. Okay, good. They're now using the tools, right? They were starting to show that they had mastered certain content that we had gone through, certain exercises by doing the video-based coaching assessment. They were making more connections and their call rate went up 84%. So they were not comfortable with being uncomfortable, and they just needed to know that they could try it, they could learn from each other. There was a benefit to being in this open office. And in doing that, not only were they successful, but all of a sudden, I was able to start sharing that success throughout the organization. But it was very much, don't take Sales Enablement's word for it. Talk to their managers. See what their managers say, because now they're a champion of Sales Enablement in this new movement. Oh, this is an eye chart. I did this on purpose. It's crazy, right? The only thing I'm going to tell you is that this was my saving grace. Everything's in my phone. Everything's in my calendar. There was so much chaos when I was onboarding that I actually had to go to the color-coded calendar for the rest of the year so that every single one of my stakeholders could see what Sales Enablement was doing and when we were doing it. And it was an absolute lifesaver. It's obnoxious, I know, but if you have it and it's a Google Drive document and you can share this with all your stakeholders, you don't get those last minute requests. We need training tomorrow. It's like, okay, cool. Let's look at what's going on. Let's talk about if we need to reprioritize. And then they start to realize, okay, we could probably wait till November. It also keeps me on track. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. tale of two E's, enablement and empathy. We know what enablement is. I'm not going to give you the definition. We wear a lot of different hats. We have a responsibility to our sales organization. We're getting pulled in a ton of different directions. It was the best of times. How many of you have come out of a program or a training session and just felt amazing? I nailed it. I feel good. Raise your hands. It's awesome, right? Enablement is a complete roller coaster because 3 days later, it's the worst of times. Nobody likes what you're doing. Your newsletter looks like it's from 1992. That's a real quote, by the way. You're like, I can't win. I can't win. But for us, it's always about the wisdom, whether we're providing that wisdom or whether we're gaining that wisdom from the team. Just like I said to you, I always say to my team, I can learn just as much from you as you can learn from me. That's a great way to gain that credibility. But I don't think, and you can hold me to this, I don't think you would be a successful sales enablement professional if you did not know how to practice empathy. Empathy is being able to recognize your own feelings. It's being able to recognize someone else's feelings. You know, if my microphone was not attached to this scarf, I'd be throwing it into the audience. We need to be able to put ourselves in our rep's shoes, right? That's when we can't do that. That's when they're like, you don't know me. You don't get me. Why are you scheduling something at the end of the month when I'm trying to close deals? Why are you scheduling a certification at the end of the year? So empathy is one of the best things that we can practice. And I always say my job is to be able to demonstrate things that I would expect my sales reps to demonstrate with our customers. And empathy is one of those things. It's very different than sympathy. Sympathy is very appropriate at a funeral. I'm sympathetic. I feel bad. Don't be sympathetic to your sales reps. That's counterproductive. But certainly think about the programs you're making with an empathy point of view. Oh, I was going to say, anyone want to make bets on whether or not I'm going to remember my builds? Too late, because I forgot them. What do you guys know about organizational behavior? When you create programs today, do you even think of organizational behavior in the process of designing those programs? Good. I like to see head shaking for that. By definition, it's the study of both group and individual performance and activity within an organization. It is the area of study that examines human behavior in the work environment. It determines its impact on the job structure, on the performance, the communication, the motivation, the leadership, etc. And what's most important is there's actually 5 versions of this. I'm going to go through this really quick. I just want you to be aware of this. Autocratic, not good. I don't think any of us would do very well in a sales enablement role with an autocratic model. Real old school, loyalties to the boss. You know why loyalties to the boss? Because it's toxic. There's fear. You're lucky to have a job, right? Custodial, all about the money. I think about the 80s, right? What was the movie, Wolves of Wall Street? That's literally what it is. How can we give you flashy benefit packages? Does anyone still do company cars anymore? It's funny. When you look at the definition for this, they talk about company cars. I've never seen it. I've only heard of it. The last 3 are my favorite, and the last 3 are the ones that we need to focus on as enablers. I'm a college basketball player, former college basketball player. The collegial model reminds me of my years playing sports. It's all about teamwork. It's all about working towards one simple goal together. It's all about inspiration, right? Your sales managers take their role as being the ones that can inspire very seriously. And then the supportive model is all about recognizing your rising talent. We've now got the talent. How do we keep them? How do we grow them? Who are our future leaders? So yeah, listen, in enablement, a huge focus for us is the foundational learning. We have to have the onboarding. We are focused on ramp, right? But we also need to recognize those stars, and we need to have those programs, not just for the continual learning, but to really get those people to the next level. And I'm starting to see a shift, even in my own career, where I'm able to dedicate a little more time to creating some really detailed and specific plans for individuals. So once your foundation is there, once your continual learning is happening, once you have a plan for that reactive piece, right? Things happen, mergers, acquisitions, you've got to act on it. Once you can do all of that, don't forget that individual piece. I'm doing a ton of work with sales managers on basically 2 areas. Reps that might be struggling. I always look at their engagement. I always want to understand what their onboarding looked like, especially if it wasn't my version. And I want to come up with a plan to try to get them out of that. But I can't own that wholeheartedly. I have to be a part of that, but the manager has a lot of accountability there as well. What do we tell sales reps when they're so committed to a sales deal and you're like, it's not going to close, you need to walk away? What do we tell them? Cut the tie, walk away. I don't like to do this with employees that are struggling, but if I truly have somebody that doesn't have the right competencies and I feel like we've done everything we could, I need to just find a better balance. Because chances are, I have a rising star that's not getting the attention that they deserve. The supportive model, like I said, it's just finding that talent, nurturing it, having programs. I will sit with sales reps and say, where do you want to be 2 years from now, 3 years from now? I know they're having these conversations with their managers, but I can help them with that. And so I know I can build programs around that. And then the system model is like when you look at a company like LinkedIn, right? Everyone loves working at LinkedIn. Why? They're just a great place to work for if you ask a lot of their employees. They've got the incentives, they've got the development programs. What I really want to say here is for those last 3, collegial, supportive, system, this is where we need to focus on. This is where we need to be advocates as well to the rest of our organization. We have this millennial workforce. They get a bad rap. I love them. They're fantastic to enable. They really are. And guess what? There's a stat that I read a couple months ago. They are going to be our CEOs in the next 10 years. They're going to be running some of the major companies in the world. Those last 3 are what they basically relate to most. So emotional intelligence, it's really just being able to understand your own emotions and then those of the people around you. Gosh, how are we going to coach people if we don't understand emotional intelligence? And on the flip side of this, some people have a natural ability and a high EI. Some people don't. And this is a skill that sales reps need. They need to be able to pick up on cues. They need to be able to read clients. So there's self-awareness. I'm going to share with you what I do as a sales enablement professional. I'm very self-aware, and sometimes I have to force myself to be self-aware. But being self-aware is my version of understanding myself in and out, side to side, what motivates me, what drives me, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses. And then there's self-regulation. Actually, I'm going to backtrack the tidbits for self-awareness. Anyone journal? Journaling is such a good thing for self-awareness, and you don't have to write paragraphs. You might just do a bullet here and there of what happened during the day. Guys, we're getting beat up every day. We love our sales teams, right? Right? We love our sales team, but we're an unsung hero. We get beat up every day, and that self-awareness can kind of keep that roller coaster ride of enablement in check. Self-regulation, I did not practice this the other day, the irony. It was Sunday, I live on a dead-end street. I have a 6- and 5-year-old and 7 of their little friends riding bikes down the street. I live in Mass. Someone from New Hampshire came flying down our street, and I yelled at him for going too fast. And then later I was getting my presentation just to look over and I thought, ooh, I didn't practice self-regulation there. Self-regulation is just kind of keeping ourselves in check, not taking things personally. For sales reps, self-regulation is to get them to the point where just because they fail, they don't shut down. Empathy, we've talked about it. I'm going to tell you what, sales reps look to us as trusted advisors, but usually we're the cheerleaders, right? We're the ones trying to build them up. We're the ones that when we're offering learning and development because they're struggling, it's less, here's what you got to do to succeed, and it's more, I want to help you. Let me know what you need, right? They can also pick up on our emotions. They expect a lot from us. And when we walk around mopey, when we walk around and we're not communicating with them, we're not engaged with them, they wonder. They pick up on it quickly and they wonder if there's something else going on. Social skills. That's like that interpersonal, and it ties right back to the emotional intelligence. There's a lot of people that need a lot of work when it comes to those social skills. And we can coach on that. We can provide examples of what good looks like, or we can create development plans to help them. And then there's always hope and optimism. Yeah, it would be very tough to do what I do today and not be optimistic 90% of the time. So there was this quote that companies that focused on employee motivation and engagement realized 27% higher profits, 50% higher sales, 50% higher customer loyalty levels, and 38% above average productivity. Motivation, motivating a sales team does matter. It does actually impact not just your ability to retain your talent, but also your customer and buyer journey. I talked about this before. There's actually 3 types of salespeople. Do you guys agree with this? 3 types of salespeople that we deal with. We have our underperformers, we have our core performers, we have our rock stars. Who's really the unsung hero in this group? The core. Yeah, we forget about them. Think about kickoff. We go to kickoff, who gets all the credit? And they deserve it. They work their asses off for it. But who gets all the kickoff credit? The rock stars. And as enablers, this is a group that we sometimes try to tap into too much. Why are they rock stars? They work really hard. They travel a lot. They work ungodly hours. And when we ask things of them all the time, we're going to train them out. And we're going to prevent them from being rock stars. Unsung heroes with the core performers, what better way to encourage them and to motivate them than to give them an opportunity to come in and speak to a team? I'll pull a core performer any day and say, hey, do you mind throwing 2 slides together to deliver during the next power hour? You're really good at research and prospecting. Or I think you could really provide some good insight to our BDRs inside sales teams. These are individuals where the talent is there, and we have to prioritize our ability to bring them to the next level because they actually want to be challenged. And so I really love this group. And then the underperformers, one of 2 things. Either the core competencies weren't there to begin with, and it's going to require a lot of hand-holding, but I have seen a lot of success stories. Don't give up on them. I've seen a lot of success stories where they were able to become a core performer or a rock star. So they're worth it. They're worth the effort. But just like I would tell my sales team, sometimes you don't see the level of engagement from them, and you can't continue to spend, you can't help someone that doesn't want to help themselves, right? So it's all a balancing act. These are just some of the motivational techniques that I practice every day. I will sit with my reps and just say, hey, how's it going? What's going on? What can I help you with, right? I want to know what they consider important. I'm always consistent and very transparent in my communication, and I give them opportunities so that they can communicate to the rest of the organization too. Whether it's shout outs in our newsletter, whether it's spotlighting their sales deal, I'll say, you know what, you bring me a deal you won, we're gonna write up a sales spotlight, we're gonna give you a little credit, I'm gonna throw you a $100 gift card, how's that sound? And they all wanna do it, because now it's a competition, now it's a game, and who the heck doesn't like to be on a stage getting a little bit of attention? And then I'll actually say, if you lost a deal, so what? We lose deals all the time. You give me a spotlight out of your loss, I'll give you $200. We're their advocates, guys, remember this. We're the advocates. We advocate what they need to our sales managers and leaders. We advocate for what they need to our product marketing team. That is how you achieve ultimate trusted advisor status. Understand their personal goals. I just truly believe that if you don't understand what every single one of your rep is driven by, what they want to achieve, where they want to go in their career, if you can't have that open line of communication with them, you're probably cranking out some good programs, but you could be cranking out better programs. Honestly, I tell my reps, if you leave, I take that personally. Whether I had anything to do with it or not, I'm sad that you left. I'm going to go through this real quick because I think I talked about it, but focus on behaviors rather than the results. Make sure that your version of what good sales rep behaviors are matches what your sales managers and your sales leaders think and your HR team. And I also say start with KPIs and work backwards. If it's a vendor I'm bringing in, if it's a manager that asks for something, I don't do anything without saying, okay, cool, we can do this, but how are we going to measure it? What's the measurements of success? What's the KPIs that this is directly going to impact? I always emphasize learning by doing. If I don't actively listen to my sales team, how is my sales team going to actively listen to others? If I don't pick up on social cues, how is my sales team going to pick up on others? I constantly ask them when we're going through role plays or exercises or they say something. I always look at them and I say, why? I'm like my 5-year-old son, Finnegan. But why? But why? And then eventually they'll look at me and they'll go, oh, you're doing that thing again. You're treating me like I should be treating the customer, right? And it's like, yeah, absolutely. I hold my managers accountable to this too. If they're not demonstrating the right behaviors, I'll call them out on it. That, oh, I have another nickname. It's the general. It's not a one and done. I'm going to leave it at that. You get it. You can't just do this once and expect it to stick. It requires consistent reinforcement. Sales behaviors drive sales activities, and that in turn is going to give you the results that you're looking for. So focus on the behaviors versus the results. I always measure, and it's not easy. I do surveys around the board. I didn't like to hear that my newsletter looked like it was from 1990, and then a week later it looked like it was from 2002. So I thought, maybe we're making progress. I ask my sales managers all the time, I swear, this scarf is a disaster. I ask my sales managers all the time, can you go to Ben, my CRO, that's who I report to, can you go to Ben and ask him how Enablement's doing? Do the 365. It's not easy, but it's important. And that's it. That's all I had.
We have time for 2 questions for Jen, who has some questions based on what you've seen and heard. Anybody have questions?
Hi, Jen. Thanks for the speech. I really liked it. I have a couple of questions. I do a lot of sales enablement, and I'm wondering about a couple of things. The first one is, what do you think of, I'm not a fan of Swifts. I don't like giving them out because I feel like we're just paying them to do something that they should be doing, and I feel like that's not a good it's not sustainable, like a sustainable way. Do you think that they play a part, or do you think we should be really focusing on other kind of like non-monetary things like recognition or things like that to enable salespeople or like motivate them?
Yeah, I just think there's so much that we can do not monetary based. I mean, some people have fun with it, and so that's why I will do gift cards here and there. But at the same time, I think you can motivate your reps just as much when you give them a few minutes in the spotlight, or you ask them to mentor, or you ask them to share their best practices. Sometimes I'll bring them in the room and I'll actually ask them to help me design a sales enablement program. And they really love that because they realize that their success, their practices are valued. And sometimes that's all you need. So I find a balance. The money piece is fun, but I don't go too crazy with the incentives and the spiffs.
We have time. One more question. Anyone?
Oh, come on. I challenge just one more. Give me one more.
Hi, Jen. Thank you for your talk. How do you, well, first of all, I always say my hair is so big because it's full of sales rep secrets. And I'm wondering how you scale your empathy, because people, slacking or emailing or sort of telling you what's really going on is difficult to scale across an organization. So you do surveys or group meetings. Like, how does that work for you?
I do as much as I can. I will do surveys. I will occasionally just Slack someone. If I have a new hire, I'll just send them a random Slack on a Friday afternoon, and they don't realize that it's actually scheduled in my calendar. But I will just say, hey, I just want to know what's going on. Is everything good? But in addition to that, there are times where we've done role plays and people are visibly upset at their performance. And I'll find the right opportunity to say, hey, meet me in a room upstairs where no one can see, and I'll just talk to them about what they did right and what they need to focus on, and I'll just try to get them back on track. But I'll sit with them at lunch and, talk to them that way. Whatever opportunity I have to better understand them and their needs, I'm tapping into that. I will just end with this. I honestly think that you can take your sales enablement program to the next level when you start considering that you're a little bit of a sales psychologist and you practice empathy, you understand organizational behavior, and you start to really hone in on what motivates different types of personalities. All right, thank you for the time.
Thank you so much.